Well, okay, whatever. I screwed up, so I guess I'm just gonna go immediately to starting, um, which is fine. And I just processed that I had organized a couple things a little off. Hey there, I'm glad of you to join. Just there, Dwagon. This isn't a video game stream. You don't have to be so mean to me. So today I thought I would dive into a little bit of the particular mask off transphobia. So obviously, content warning, transphobia, maybe fashy talking points. I don't know, but like, here we are. So like I said, J.K. Rowling has terrible friends, and which is true, but so that's J.K. Rowling here, and the person Helen Joyce is one of the people. I know there's one. I know there's a picture of J.K. Rowling like hugging Helen Joyce specifically, but I couldn't find it. Would have been slightly better for this, but these are the sorts of people J.K. Rowling hangs around with and likes to be friends with. So and which is why I say she has terrible friends, because Helen Stanland, which is another awful person, who J.K. Rowling has retweeted on numerous occasions. I don't know that they've actually interacted in person, but I know somewhere in this hour-long conversation, I mean, J.K. is pretty terrible, so stands to reason, yes. I legit only put J.K. Rowling's name in the stream title because J.K. Rowling is more well known, and I know they're friends. And I know J.K. Rowling likes Helen Stanland, but somewhere in this is mask off transphobia. Now, I do not know exactly where, which is why this is going to be on double speed. But this is the investigation, for they might say other really terrible things. I have it set up for okay, it's back to 1x speed. 1.5, because sometimes British accents get a bit difficult for me to understand at 2x speed, or at the very least this person.
Hello everyone, welcome to Wine with Women. Once again, I have time lest you forget where you are for the next hour, where we get to
the context of we have a sign, so don't forget where you are. Just, I don't know, something about that feels wrong in the context of particular people when it comes to talking about stuff.
to some of the most amazing women who have found themselves, like many of us, just suddenly working to advance the right of women and girls. And tonight, I've got the most wonderful guest. I'm very excited. She really doesn't need much of an introduction. She is a journalist and the author of Trans, When Ideology Meets Reality.
Oh, God. So specifically for the transphobic book. I legit, like, I was torn. I kind of like half wanted to watch this video and I didn't want to watch this video. But because I've seen the worst of the clips, but I was curious. That's why I'm investigating. With a disgusted look on my face.
Joyce.
Hello, Mother Helen.
Okay. welcome, one of the other Helens.
One of the many Helens. It is the turf
Yes,
name.
indeed. Yes, we are that.
We are legion. We are legion.
Helens of the city.
Yeah, no, it is awful already. Yes, HK, it is definitely, it is awful already. I agree with that. Something about transphobia and like oftentimes gets mixed with Christianity, and when people say stuff like "we are legion," it makes me like, wait a minute. Are they like the bringers of the apocalypse or something? But anyways.
Age, I think.
There's some young ones. I've met the occasional young Helen.
Oh, that's nice. It's good to know that the name has actually probably just come back round into fashion.
Yeah, okay. Moving swiftly on, Helen.
So, Ricky Gervais.
I know, what a relief. What a huge relief.
I'm already like, wait, what's the relief? I am concerned because I know this is from like 11 days ago or 12 days ago. So I'm just like, I mean, I'm sure, I know Ricky Gervais has said some really awful stuff. Did he get some pushback? And then they're relieved that it wasn't major pushback. I'm confused, but I'm terribly yeah. That pretty much sums up my mood on so much of this.
It's so important for the social contagion side of things.
The social contagion side of things already starting off with the same thing, because I mean the same rhetoric is used for anti-trans stuff as is used for basically anti-LGBTQ stuff of any kind. And there's a lot of crossover between anti-intersex stuff or whatever, or the idea that, you know, intersex people need to be cured to become like a normie or whatever, but like which is just awful, but like immediately social contagion. This might be a long stream. This might be a longer stream than I expected, because if they're starting off with calling talking about social contagion, you know what, so I'm going to do something to promote myself, because I'm like that.
Over time, the LGBT population of America seems to be roughly doubling every generation. According to a recent Gallup poll, less than 1% of Americans born before 1946, that's Joe Biden's generation, identify that way. 2.6% of boomers do, 4.2% of Gen X, 10.5% of millennials, and 20.8% of Gen Z. Which means if we follow this trajectory, we will all be gay in 2054.
Ralph was sick, a sickness that was not visible like smallpox, but no less dangerous and contagious, a sickness of the mind. You see, Ralph was a homosexual.
Broken down.
Yeah, so it is 100% a repeat of that sort of conversation from like that. I want to say it was either 50s or 60s. I can't remember when the and that particular advertisement was put out, but it's yeah.
Because this sort of, you know, identifying out as being a boring cis white straight person, well, you know, if people are going to laugh at it, it's not that I think that we should all be mocking people, and I couldn't do it, but, you know, if people think it's not cool and they think that it's a joke, they won't do it.
You know, I hadn't actually thought of it from that aspect.
I think it's the most important bit.
Yeah, no, I think you've made an excellent point there. It's yes, he's made it not cool now.
Yeah, him and Bill Maher, of course. And, you know,
The Bill Maher thing, I showed the clip. I mean, it's essentially using the same conversation. I mean, the same reason left-handedness had a spike is the same reason more people identify as LGBTQ. People have the language for it. People, it's okay. It's more okay now to be LGBTQ than it was in the early, and then, 30, 40, 50 years ago. So yeah, you're going to see the similar trend as the left-handed thing, but like, and it is the same argument, but yeah, I of course bring up the Bill Maher thing.
To say that neither of them were laughing at, you know, people. They weren't punching down. They were talking about an ideology. Debbie Hayton has a piece that's just come out in The Spectator, which I think Debbie got to talk to Ricky for, so I'm very jealous of that. But anyway, Ricky says that, you know, it's not punching down, and what he's talking about is the ideology, not the people.
So, no, it still is punching down. So what it is it's mocking. Just because you didn't see a thing or didn't know, quote unquote, know a thing doesn't mean it didn't exist before. Yes, that is definitely true. Weasels. I mean, don't insult weasels like that. That's just mean. But I know what you're talking about. But like this is very much the sort of thing that happens is like it's sort of like when black people no, it's okay, HK. It's not that big of a deal. I was being extra snarky. But like the it's the I lost my train of thought for a second. My ADHD is taking over. So when it comes to this stuff, it's very much, oh yes, it's punching down because so making fun of black people wanting equal rights is still punching down, even if you're just like, I'm making fun of the ideology. If you weren't left-handed and weren't beaten for it, doesn't mean people didn't survive it. Yeah, but like, it's very much like making fun of the ideology of equality for everyone is making fun of. It is to some degree viewing people who want equal rights, who you don't like, as lesser. I believe I'm forced to immediately already go to the Vander Vi thing.
I grew up knowing I'm less than them. That my place is down there. I want power in that, and I'm willing to fight for it.
I mean, I might be an Arcane and League of Legends fangirl, but like, more importantly, I could probably stopped it after I grew up knowing that I was considered less than them. It is pretty much the feeling you get when everyone's making fun of the idea of you being treated like a human being. Yes. Wait, is that coffee and high fives? Yes, HK. If you like coffee or tea and high fives, you should still receive them.
And the thing is, the ideology is absolutely hysterical.
It's like every word out of Helen Joyce's mouth I disagree with. Immediately, oh, we're fighting for women's rights. Now let me use sexist terminology from the 70s that no psychologist would use today, or no, well, not no psychologist would use today, but no psychologist should use today, given how it's always been something used to demean women. So like, and especially if they're talking about trans women, because they ignore the fact that trans men exist, but they're talking about trans women. So they're saying trans women have a hysterical ideology. So like on some level, you see this and you're like, you are simultaneously sexist, transphobic, and also still treating trans women as women on some level, because it's hard to fight the instinct that exists, which they are definitely fighting against the realities of that situation.
The effects aren't funny. Like people getting sterilized and women losing their medals and all that's not funny. But this bit that
It's so not all not all trans people are sterilized in this person's words, but like you there are laws that are set up where you have to choose between being yourself and not being sterile. Like those are your choices: to exist in a way that's not distressing, but you have to be sterile to exist that way and be recognized that way by the state. It wasn't until recently that bottom surgery was required for you to be legally considered a woman, and so it's what people do to themselves, like, is none of your business. If someone wants to be sterile or puts the value of something above their ability to reproduce, why is it your business?
you all have to pretend that we can look at somebody with a beard and a cock and balls and say that this is a woman. It's hysterical.
Naturally, they're going. Helen Joyce is immediately going to a stereotype that just almost never happens, and usually it's not. So like, to simplify people in that way is just to simplify people that way is just extra awful. Because Helen Joyce is simplifying people to genitalia and the existence or lack of existence of facial hair. And it's what she sees immediately. So like, and it doesn't work the reverse. So if a trans man has a beard and a cock and balls, as Helen Joyce said, Helen Joyce would still not be calling that person a man. And because they look for every excuse to not consider trans people to be people. And imagine trans people as the stereotype. Quiet, Dwagon. I saw the get good thing. I'm not gonna have the Dwagon stop saying get good, by the way. Do they normally inspect the junk of all quote-unquote friends? Yeah. Well, the thing is they don't. And there are women who are cis women who, for whatever hormonal reason, have beards or have facial hair, significant facial hair. And the only way you know whether or not they had that would be to inspect, and that's not on a practical level. That's not that, and they are. And right here is an example of bunching down, because it's not. This isn't a joke about the ideology. This is, hey, here's a stereotype of what how trans people are, and this stereotype is what I'm going to laugh at. It's like, yeah, there's a long history of racism that in America that I'm aware of enough to know that that happened here, and it was still hating on black people. So yeah.
Yes,
It's dying
yes,
for people to puncture it.
absolutely right. Yes, in fact, I thought what was really quite telling about the Who piece, and I know we've all said this because we all saw it immediately, which is he's almost quoting verbatim from a Twitter thread. He's not made his own jokes up there about sort of trans people themselves. He is literally just parroted what is happening to women and girls every day.
And I thought, that use of the word dinosaurs, that was very telling. That just showed me he's been listening quietly for a while. He's been paying attention.
He has.
McCarthyism exhumed. Yeah. Well, I mean, I mean, by the way, I agree with that. Sorry, I don't mean to imply that I don't. It reminds me of the. So there is a really good breakdown on the cultish aspects of the gender critical crowd, quote unquote gender critical crowd, I should say, because they're not critical of gender, but like it's very cult like, and they are constantly battling an imaginary enemy and looking for every trans person to attack, and looking for any trans person who may or may not have done something bad. And M puts facial hair as a common symptom of PCOS. Yes. It's they don't want people to be different from the binary, and it which all stems from white nationalist reasoning. The white nationalist reasoning that they want more strong, fertile white people.
You say that you were jealous of Hayden. We're not jealous of you because some of us were jealous that Ricky Gervais had liked their tweets. You got a reply.
I know. I was like, oh my god, does he follow me? And he does.
Now, I mean, yes, Kaylin Conrad. If you haven't checked out Kaylin Conrad's channel, go ahead and subscribe to Kaylin Conrad. Well, I'm gonna even post a link. Killen Conrad's breakdown on that is just. I'm so egotistical. I watch myself. So yeah. So gender critical ideology, part 1, 2, and 3. There you go. Yeah, it's Kaylin Conrad is just does such an in-depth investigative breakdown of that stuff.
How was even following me? Oh my god, we're so sad, Helen.
So sad. We can be sad here. It's okay.
Yeah.
Anyone can be Star Trek. That's not anything I would criticize. Like I was so excited for like a week when John Cusack referenced one of my tweets. I was just like over the moon. Everyone does that. You know, it's one of the things where people are human beings, but also these human beings are awful.
It's tragic.
We're all sat
Anyway.
together. Yeah. We're just like a corner of women just having a chat about this. So back to what you're saying, I do think that social contagion thing is interesting. But I mean, for me, what I saw of it was just the fact that now, you know, he's got the word turf out into the mainstream. Presumably, it's already mainstream, which is why he feels that it's the right time for him to be able to say it. But there are, you know, so there's enough people who understand the word because, you know, they were all laughing, etc. But there will be now some thinking, what is he talking about? What is this that's going on? And we'll hopefully have a look into it and see.
Yeah, see, I think that for quite a while now, this has not been about consciousness raising. That's been irrelevant. That was important 2 or 3 years ago when there weren't enough people. But there have been enough people to be critical mass, to be funding the, you know, the crowdfunders, to be writing letters to MPs, all that sort of thing, to have a movement, to have support for women and men, of course. I mean, there's people like Graham, of course, as well.
Yeah, I don't think they think too hard about what's actually going on in their movement. I think they follow. So there's a very conservative structure where you take orders from people above you, and I get the impression that a lot of cults like that, and I could be wrong here. I can't remember what Kaylin Conrad's breakdown completely. I know I watched all 3 of those videos. I might need to watch them again. Their breakdown of the gender critical stuff is just amazing. But yeah.
Got their necks stuck out on this. We can't win this by saying, you know, there's 60x million people in this country and we've got to persuade all of them or a great majority.
Okay, no, here it is. Wow, it is 4.5 minutes in is the thing. So let me actually move this to 1x speed. We can't convince the majority of people.
Then we've got to get through to the decision makers. And in the meantime, while we're trying to get through to the decision makers, we have to try to limit the harm. And that means reducing or keeping down the number of people who transition. And that's for 2 reasons.
So, keeping down the number of people who transition, going after legislative stuff because they know they are fighting against the general public opinion. What does that sound like when you're trying to get when you're trying to you know, slowly remove people from existence one way or another? It sounds very what's that word? Is it genocide? Is it a genocide ideology? I know the book has specific there's like a famous, I used to remember this. I know there's a famous thing that a lot of the TERFs support, which is very much like trying to use conversion therapy on people who are trans, so that they stop existing, being the reasoning. And and that stems from the idea that it's a gateway to being gay or whatnot. So
one of them is that every one of those people is a person who's been damaged. But the second one is every one of those people is basically, you know, a huge problem to a sane world. Like,
so my existence is a huge problem to a quote unquote sane world. Definitely something totally like, yeah, this just sounds like the person is really uncomfortable with my existence and other people's existence. Eugenics are pretty right, makes everyone stronger. Actually, eugenics is actually what I was thinking of. I couldn't think of the word eugenics. I knew it started with an E, but genocide also. Genocide is a part of eugenics. But yeah, it's very much a reasoning of they're uncomfortable with trans people existing, and you know, it doesn't help when you have trans people repeat aspects of this ideology. I know I'm probably just once I figure out how best to post things, once I upload the video, after I edit it for flashing light issues, and put up the full thing, ContraPoint said something very similar to that about LGBTQ people being damaged. And ContraPoints was like, a lot of LGBTQ people are hurting others, which I disagreement. Sane world A, so ableism too. Yeah, of course there's ableism in this, and there's white supremacy in this, because a part of they're viewing all trans women as white. Or I get the impression that they view all trans women as white. And which is why they focus on the fertility thing. And possibly all trans men too. Just everyone trans as being white. Which is why there's the focus on the fertility, so that they're more white babies. Because of white nationalist ideology that has also seeped into this. And I think J.K. Rowling has some, outside of being friends with Helen Joyce, and has at least, they're singing all the hits. Yes, HK, they are singing all the hits. It's so many, and this is the very mask off moment where it is very. It is the most clear. They're and maybe it's because they're comfortable talking with each other that way. Maybe it's because of the societal acceptance of hate as a normal thing. But yeah,
if you've got people that, and whether they're transitioned, whether they're happily transitioned, whether they're unhappily transitioned, whether they're detransitioned, if you've got people who've dissociated from their sex in some way, every one of those people is someone who needs special accommodation in a sane world where we re-acknowledge the truth of sex.
So that person simultaneously said so Helen Joyce essentially at the end here is like, I want the world to be a particular way. I don't care if trans people are happy. I just don't want them to exist. Helen Joyce doesn't care if trans people are happy. She doesn't care. Like, at all. And, she just... you know, has stereotyped every trans person as a trans woman who looks like a man because they can always tell. Remember that? Yeah, special accommodation. Essentially, what she's saying there is trans people need special accommodation. By special accommodation, she means being put through conversion therapy to not be trans. Special accommodation to you know, understand the reality of sex or whatever. It is for one thing, trans people know that sex exists. I know that sex exists. It's a biological classification related to stuff, but it's yeah, that is conversion therapy. She's advocating for conversion therapy for anyone trans so that there can be less trans people. She has basically laid out a eugenics plan in like a few short sentences, which is why I want to put this video out, because I mean there's a lot of transphobia and there's a lot of closeted transphobia, and it's more important to show when they have their mask off, because then they and when they say their actual intentions, when they lay it out like that, where they're like, we don't care if trans people are happy, we don't care if in every other way they're living the same sort of lifestyle as everyone else. I'm uncomfortable with trans people existing, and therefore conversion therapy. Thank you, HK. But yeah, it's I don't think, because I don't think when they're what's clear to everyone is not like there's a lot of softened language that's used. There's a ton of softened language that's oftentimes used, and so I don't want to make a video that accidentally promotes them. But I mean, she just laid out eugenics and gave a clear as clear as you can get breakdown of what the general movement that Joyce is supporting. Special accommodation sounds like a disability dig to me too. It's pathologizing to fix. Yes. And because they view trans people as wrong for existing, you know, they're trying to fix trans people in the same way they were trying to fix gay people back in the 60s. It's the same rhetoric, it's the same plan that can't possibly win. And they're doing it ultimately from the emotional viewpoint that trans people shouldn't exist. It's very clearly the case.
And I mean, the people who've been damaged by it, the children who've been put through this, those people deserve every accommodation we can possibly make.
So this is conversion therapy of children, always a good sign. But also the same sort of right-wing talking points. And that also mirrors the narrative that was used against gay people. If someone that's viewed as a man wears a dress, they might be turning gay and need to go to conversion therapy. That was sort of the the red flag to a lot of conservative people to put people into conversion therapy. And Helen Joyce is saying she's saying the same points. She's not saying anything new, and this has been shown to be damaging to people, but she would have to view trans people as people.
But every one of them is a difficulty.
Yes.
You know? And I mean, I know
Yes.
that sounds heartless. I'm trying to say exactly the opposite of sounding heartless. I'm saying
I mean, you can sound not heartless, and still be arguing for eugenics. Like you can say it in a nice way that doesn't that doesn't change the fact that you broke down word for word how you want the eugenics to go.
Every one of those people for 50, 60, 70 years is going to need things that the rest of us just don't need because the rest of us are just our sex. So
yeah, this is definitely from that's supposedly the mind of a mathematician. Oh, wait, Helen Joyce is a mathematician? I didn't actually look up Helen Joyce's qualifications. Supposedly, wait. Helen Joyce. University of College London, PhD. She's also implying transition is actual abuse. Yeah, she is. Several senior positions. Part 3 of the mathematical tripos. Yeah, PhD in geometric measure theory. Okay. Postdoctoral in Cardiff. Yeah. I mean, math. Yeah. I mean, I realize I just used Wikipedia, but like, it wouldn't surprise me. I mean, mathematics is not.
the fewer of those people there are, the better in the sane world that I hope we will reach.
Once again, eugenics. The fewer of those people exist. All of that just to be a piece of shit. Yeah, HK. Yeah, and once again, eugenics. So long as there's less, that's a world that we should strive for. Is a world with less trans people. You know, a purer world, one with, you know, strong white fertile men and nurturing fertile women. And everyone white. It's almost like there's it's almost like a white nationalist talking point that it's almost like a lot of this is fueled by the white nationalism which has been conditioned throughout aspects of society.
Yes, you're absolutely right, and not just other.
It doesn't surprise me. It's Helen Stanaland agrees, obviously.
Things that they are also going to need is people to tell them that actually nobody really does hate them. No one hates them.
Free of contaminated blood and soil. Yeah, that is the attitude. And yeah, nobody hates trans people. Yes, a lot of people hate trans people. People beat the shit out of trans people. People kill trans people for being trans. Trans people are rejected jobs, and you just said the world would be better if there's less of you. That is, it's a cold hatred. It's not hot hatred. Who decides who's sane anyhow? Not you, Helen. Either of the Helens.
Compassion for them, but the trans movement really has done a terrible job saying that everyone hates you. I mean, you see parents like online saying, "Oh, I'm so frightened for my child coming out into a world where."
So, I mean, this is very much cherry picking because people get kicked out of their house for being gay or being trans. Like, this is not. There is actual hate.
Everyone hates them, and I'm like, no one hates your kid, man. Like, no one hates your kid. You're just doing this. You're perpetuating the harm by saying this. But
but like I said, it's a cold hatred. So like you can the people think of hatred and they think of like the hot hatred of someone being angry and yelling, which I mean some of these people the gender critical turfy groups might or do on occasion. But like there's also a cold hatred of I want you to not exist in whatever way I can and don't have to feel bad about it. And there's the hot hatred of the numerous people who have told me to kill myself. It's one of those things where it's like there's a meme of like, because I can't remember all of them, and some of them were probably on Twitch, some of them on Twitter, but I've been generally not going into the negative aspects of spaces and blocking people a lot quicker than I used to, but like yeah, it's I have gotten people who very clearly hate me for existing, and you know, make a bunch of jokes that I should die, but obviously they can't do it to themselves, either because they're afraid they might not actually succeed in killing me and get themselves hurt or arrested, or also that they don't want to feel bad about it, and if they don't know how I die for sure, they don't necessarily have to feel bad about it in their minds, I'm sure.
So, but saying that, I thought that article in the BBC, was it Patrick
Strudwick, I think, yes.
Had written was it did show exactly what women had been saying, that you know, this conversion therapy ban is exactly sort of a talking therapy ban. It's just, you know, just
How
wanting to
stupid are
prevent
these people?
anything.
How stupid are they? You know, their best line was, "We're not criminalising ordinary."
So I mean, they're complaining because some people wanted conversion therapy to include banning conversion therapy for trans people, and obviously that is what they want. So
Talking therapy, of course we're not. Of course you can continue to practice the way that you always were and get banned through and then make it impossible to do anything except defamation. That was the smart move. They're so dumb that they have to reveal while the ban is still in question. But actually, a 25-minute Zoom call with a child in which you check whether the two of you can work together by asking some probing
that was a bit crackly that way.
questions, and they include no you can't, which is a very understandable thing. I mean, it's very hard actually for a child to have an appointment made by their parents. You know, children do get dragged to therapy. It's kind of pointless. It's what mum and dad want, it's not what they want. They've got to learn the hard way themselves. So, you know, I'm not even saying that this was a surprising outcome.
No.
This child, the appointment was made by the parents, or the mother, I think. So yeah, I mean, you know, as Hakeem tried a few provocative remarks along the lines of, you know, has it occurred to you that this is a bit like the way that I was when I was a goth? This child says that she was traumatized by it and is still waking up with nightmares several weeks afterwards. And I loved the quote that you can't stop the words from going into your head if you hear them. You don't give consent for hearing things.
Yes, I thought that was actually, it was quite telling, wasn't it? Because it is what the ideology has been trying to do. So,
yeah, make very, very fragile deaf people. But yes.
Yeah, this is very much I mean, this is a mixture of privilege, obviously ableism, because the importance is emotionally strong, fertile people, likely white people, according to these people, but like, yeah.
Article. That's just the perfect thing to bring to politicians and say, you know, they said that they weren't going after ordinary exploratory therapy and good practice. You know, the things that Hilary Cass said about diagnostic overshadowing and how the memorandum of understanding for psychotherapy was very harmful. Here we are. And I don't know if you're aware of this, but Strudwick and other journalists, I should say, were trolling online for people to get in touch with them if they had had any of Stella O'Malley as Hakeem, a bunch of other people as their therapists. But there was a list of people circulating on Twitter saying, if any of these have been your therapists, please get in touch. So they went trolling for that story. And that was the worst they could find. And Hakeem asked some questions.
That's so particularly ethical.
No, it isn't. I mean, this girl is now 18, apparently, so she is an adult now. But I mean, Strudwick's talking about something that happened when she was 17. I mean, there's just some ethical considerations there as a journalist. You know?
Yes, yes,
Now, she is
exactly.
18. Let me repeat. She's got the right to tell her own story. She's an adult. There's no, there's no
No,
special consideration there.
no, absolutely.
I mean, given how quickly things go from 18 to 25, to, well, if you did it past 25, you're too old, and if you're doing it before 25, you're too young and you don't know what you really want. That's generally been the talking points.
But simply sort of trolling online and targeting therapists, saying,
My name.
It creates the story, doesn't it? By saying, these are the therapists you have to watch out for. And
I mean,
people
what
who
it
are very
shows is,
vulnerable.
and what it shows is that the conversion therapy ban is just the icing on the cake. They've got what they want already, which is that nobody ethical is willing to work with these kids. Like what Hilary Cass said was diagnostic overshadowing, which wasn't an expression I'd come across before. But what she was saying was that as soon as a child who may be autistic, self-harming, eating disorders, ADHD, obsessive compulsive disorder, all these things that we know co-occur with gender dysphoria, once a
So, it's not like all of those things. So comorbidity is something that is oftentimes related. So eating disorder is not inherently I don't know the statistics, but I mean there's so many social pressures that get amplified. Social pressures that are put on women that get amplified if you're a trans woman, because you get told constantly that you're not enough of a woman, you don't look good enough, all that stuff. So yeah, yeah, of course there's going to be some comorbidity with some mental health related stuff. I mean, and that doesn't make being trans not exist. In fact, there's been a long history of therapy where they try to make extra sure that any sort of reason that you are seeking medical care for to help you better be yourself, that they make extra sure that oftentimes that it's not a flippant decision or it's not related to other aspects of trauma. But I mean, that's part of the reason why there's so few detransitioners. And I know it varies from state by state. Like my state, I can go up to a doctor, but they still ask for general therapist information. It's still difficult for me to get bottom surgery.
child like that says the word gender, other doctors go, oh, I don't do gender, we better refer you. And they won't keep working with the child when the child is on the waiting list for the gender clinic. They just leave them because they're afraid to touch a child who says gender. Well, wouldn't you be afraid to touch a child who
Yes.
says gender if this is what would
Yes.
happen to you?
Yes, of course. And I'm assuming that's part of the reason for trolling and writing.
So, so when you're dealing with stuff related to that, specialists generally are there to help people, and yeah.
Story.
Oh, yeah,
If they can't get it through, then they will do what they will just
Yeah.
use the
No,
same.
they were smart.
I mean, honestly, they've only got one tactic, haven't they? Which is
If they were
to
smart,
try
they
and
would have waited.
silence.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Nobody is. So, they Helen Joyce has already mentioned that they're not the popular opinion. So I don't know why they're simultaneously expecting popular support and acting and wondering why they don't get it when they know they don't have popular support. It's not that's not trans people trying to silence you. That's just you being an asshole.
I mean, it's intimidation. It's straightforward intimidation of people like us.
I mean, you don't seem intimidated, but that isn't necessarily attempted intimidation is not necessarily the same, but like I seriously doubt that any trans person has the social power to intimidate these people. I think it's a lot about the boogeyman that they have invented, the scapegoat that they've invented, in who they view every trans woman as being.
Yeah, I mean, Asna, I think, only works with adults and with detransitioners.
And that's such a shame, because I did.
Yeah, not. There are plenty of detransitioners who retransition. There's plenty of detransitioners who would hate everything that these people are talking about. It's not. It's not. It's almost like. It's almost like what they're saying is specific to a small segment of the population who is afraid of the change, of realizing that there are people in society who are different.
I think I said last week, I heard him speak last year on a sort of a Welsh woman speak out sort of meeting, and he came across as so thoughtful and so understanding and so knowledgeable. I mean, he's been thinking about this for the last sort of 20 years, it turns out.
I mean, I thought about transitioning for to some degree, whether I knew it or not. Like the amount of time, like thinking about something for 10, 15 years. Plenty of trans people thought about transitioning for 20 years and then finally decided to transition. That's not in yeah.
Another specific thing that Az knows much more about than anyone else, because he knows about it personally, is the homophobia that's at the heart of trans ideology.
Did you know it's homophobia at the heart of trans ideology. That's the, you know, I have spoken out on this show about me, which is a lack of sexual interest and definitely no sexual interest in men. So like clearly my lesbian self is very much, you know, clearly it's homophobic for oh sorry, it's not homophobic when I do it. Clearly it's just fetishization when I do it, and it's homophobia when everyone else does it, but it's at the core, but also doesn't apply in such a way that would suggest that it's at the core of anything. And like there are plenty of gay trans men. Like what do they even, I mean, they don't even have an argument for that. Parents of non-conforming kids frequently don't act in kids' best interests and don't listen to their kids. Yes, I mean that's true, but also this is very much based on the thought process of everything everything from who you are to what you want should be decided by an outside force. And and that there's a strange, I mean, I showed the clip on TikTok that I made. It's very much it's the same thing, social contagion. It's the same thing as gay men turning your kids gay. Which is what that video was warning about, that 50s video.
As an out gay man, and a quite flamboyantly out gay man, it wouldn't take you long talking to him to guess that he's gay. And he got a job at the Tavistock at the gender clinic in the 1990s, but they didn't interview him, they didn't realise he was gay. And after he came in, what he understood, gradually, was that they still had these sort of weird Freudian ideas about Oedipal complex and about how being gay demonstrated that you were psychologically a damaged person and you had not grown up properly, and that they believed that if you were gay, you couldn't be a proper therapist. But it was completely fine to be trans, because that just meant that you got a gender identity that wasn't matched with your...
Parents don't need more rights. Yeah, yes. They've got plenty of rights. And I don't know, the story might be completely false. What Helen Joyce is saying right now, this might be a completely made up story that someone put out. I don't know enough about it, and I seriously doubt it to be likely. With stories like this, oftentimes when you look into them, what you find out is that it was about like the person was fired for completely irrelevant reasons.
Sex assigned at birth, but being gay disqualified you. So Anne's was like really pushing the deep freeze when they realised that he was gay. But they were completely happy with him. The same, completely shocking. This is the late 1990s, early 2000s.
And they throw out potential stuff to try to make it so, well, you can't prove that this wasn't a complete lie. And the thing is, they bog you down with information to try to discredit anything you say, because you can't argue about everything. You can't spend your time arguing about everything and still be listened to, which is why they do this. And so it's very... the fact of the matter is, this is unrelated to anything outside of conspiratorial thinking about trans people and agendas, the secret trans agenda, or that trans people are but fools manipulated by the secret shadowy organizations.
So this is a man. Yes, not that long ago, exactly. So this is a man who...
I mean, 30 years ago was... I mean, I guess not super long ago.
Oh, it does really annoy me. You hear this even from people who are quite sympathetic and who understand a lot about the trans ideology. They say, oh, I think it's a bit much to say that parents transition their kids because they're homophobes. And they just don't understand how it works. They don't understand how many people are deeply, deeply ashamed, especially of gender non-conforming behaviour in boys. And if you have got a boy who's super, super girly, it's kind of easier to think that he's really a girl somehow.
No, no, that's never been the case. So like, it's always been at the core of the breakdown is if your kid is gender non-conforming, they need to go to conversion therapy right away so they don't turn out to be gay or whatnot. The concept of being trans, I don't think people knew how to deal with for a long period of time, and anti-trans hate has been around for a very long time.
And it's definitely not your fault or anything you should do. You're not going to grow up to be a bloody flaming queer. He's not going to come home with some guy in motorcycle leathers or something, He's just going to grow up to be a nice girl. She's sterile, but there you go. Like, is that your problem? You think about your children's sex drive,
Sex drive and amount of sperm produced are not the same thing. You can have almost no testosterone in your body and have a sex drive. Like, that doesn't have to do with your sex drive. There are plenty... So it's one of those things where they're like... They don't want you to not... They say conflicting things. They say they don't want you... If you transition, they don't want you to be sterile. But also, your genitalia needs to match the sex the binary view of sex, because obviously intersex people exist. There are so many factors to sex associated with masculinity and femininity that anyone can have. It's not a complicated thing, and you can see the just look of disgust on Helen Joyce's face. Actually, Helen Stanland has a pretty creepy look on her face, but yeah, it's very, yeah.
Awkward thinking about that. Okay, so you've got a sterile daughter who isn't going to have any orgasms, but there you go.
Trans women can orgasm. That's not how. Transitioning has been around for a long period of time. Trans women and trans men can orgasm. There's a lot more to biology. See, they're just like, oh, but simple biology. No. Biology is a lot more complex. I know I only have an associate's in biology, so in my mind, I know basic biology. But, that also includes molecular biology and gene transformation. And when you get that far in biology, if you don't understand how complex and beautiful humanity can be, then you probably haven't gotten rid of the conditioning that occurred.
Or you can have a boy who's going to be out on the scene and bringing home who knows what. And
That is a fair point, because even not that long ago, I was thinking, is it really? It must be. I think it's really marginal.
All they need to accept is the word spectrum. Yeah. Well, yes. But also they have to, for them to even come close to accepting that, they need to get over their fear of change. And their fear of the fact that the world is not simple.
No, I don't think it's really central. It's central for the
I think
boys.
it is.
Parents they don't even know that that's how they feel. Like, if you were to say to them, "Are you prejudiced against gay people?" they'd say no. But a lot of people who say that actually do feel weird or kind of strange about really.
That feels like projection. I'm just gonna say it now. That feels like projection when she says, people don't say when they say they don't have an issue with gay people. But they actually do. That feels like projection on Helen Joyce. I'm just gonna say it. Yeah, that's my hot take.
Really effeminate behaviour in men, and you'll hear people saying, people. And it's not fair to call them prejudiced. They're perfectly nice people, but they'll say things like, "I've really nothing against gay people, but why do they have to lisp?" Or why do they all have to wear these sort of clothes, or whatever? And the idea of this being your son, and and who he's going to be bringing home and things, and I don't think these thoughts necessarily rise fully to consciousness. And also.
Totally, yeah.
The way that when people talk about gay people, they automatically think about sex, whereas straight people also have sex. It's just that because gay is not the order.
And definitely when this Helen Joyce is talking about trans people, she's not immediately talking about sex. No, just reproduction, the ability to orgasm. They're not, but she's not immediately talking about sex. A lot of the quote unquote general critical types are all like, because I'm into women, I must be some cis-het straight man who's just fetishizing women or something. And if I was into men, then I'm secretly closeted gay man. But like the focus on fertility and ability to orgasm and all this stuff is brought up by everything she said about problems with homophobia is the framing that she used for transphobia.
Thing to be, so if somebody says, well, this child might be gay, it's a key. You think what they're saying is like, this child could have sex. You're not saying that at all. You're talking about what they'll be like as an adult.
Yes, and that's her transphobia. That that's with transphobia. That's the same thing. You shouldn't care about. You should only care if someone says they're trans. You shouldn't be like, oh well, that means they're gonna sterilize themselves. That's not a rational thought process. They're kids. They're being themselves. They're exploring themselves, and people don't have to make hardcore decisions as kids.
Nobody looks at an ordinarily girly little girl and thinks, oh, she's going to be a heterosexual woman. She probably is, but you don't think about it.
No, I think
So
that's fair.
It being assumed is definitely societal promotion of heterosexuality as the default state, which isn't surprising that they use that terminology here. The saying that what it means to be a thing. She's done the Soros thing. Wait, what's the Oh, she's done the Soros thing too. Oh, my brain was slow on that. I was like, I'm like, I know the name George Soros, but where do I know it from? Of course she's done the George Soros thing.
All this weirdness and ickiness and squickiness about
And
the idea that a child is like that.
And I wonder if that's partly why the whole sterilisation thing seems to have almost gone unnoticed, because people don't like to think about the future sexuality of children. And
Absolutely,
so
absolutely.
But like, you just made the argument against your point. If you just replace gay with trans, you were essentially arguing the same point. HK, sorry. Yeah,
it's very, very hard. And we're such a...
But what are you
small nation,
apologizing
Irish
for?
more than the Brits. But in the Netherlands, like, people sit down when they're 14, 15 and talk to their parents about what contraception they want to use and whether they think they might have sex with their boyfriend and what would be a good way to make that decision and that sort of thing. And that's very normalised, and it would be quite normal to go with your mother to the clinic and get your first pill or decide whether you needed a contraceptive implant or whatever. Here we sort of just leave it to teachers who are telling our children all sorts of random crap, But yes, if you're not going to talk about it, and if you're not going to talk about children's future sex lives, which by the way is a kind of weird thing to talk about.
yes,
I don't want that widely discussed either. I don't want random adults getting involved, because I think that's the way the perverts come
But
in.
well,
I don't want random adults to get involved with sex life, but also I'm going to talk about future sex life, but also I'm going to talk about why being trans will ruin your future sex life. Blockers and pronouns don't affect fertility anyways. Yes, I mean that's true, and even HRT doesn't inherently doesn't necessarily it has a very I should have said it more clearly about her anti-Semitism. Yeah, no, that's fine. I was pretty sure about Helen Staniland's being anti-Semitic, and it wouldn't surprise me that Helen Joyce is as well. And I'm sure their video is still up on YouTube, but
yes, but if I do say to somebody, the future sexuality of this child, another way to silence me is to say, "Oh my God, you pervert," etc., etc.
Exactly.
It's extremely difficult. I mean, I think there are some. I mean, that's a deliberate attempt to silence.
Yeah, it completely is. And then there's another thing which I don't think is at all common. And so I really do think homophobia for little boys is very common. But this I do not think is common, but I don't think it's unheard of. Do you remember that little boy, Kai Shapley, the one in that awful American documentary called Trans in America, Texas Strong? It's a little boy who's, when he's 3, he wears dresses, and his parents are evangelical Christians, and they beat him, and cut his hair short, that one. And at 4, they work out that he's really a girl, and she says something more in the film like, now I have a happy, healthy little daughter who loves God and loves her brothers, sort of thing. I look at that woman and I think, you knew he was going to be gay. She says that. She said when he was 2, people started saying to me, I think he's gay. And there's a bit of her that's thinking, you think you're going to be fucking around with men, do you? No, you won't.
yeah, see, this is a recent, like, being trans is worse than it is societally worse than being gay, but also yeah, this is further everyone must have Yeah.
You know, she's castrating her son rather than having fucking
Yes.
around with men. She's castrating
Yeah,
her
yeah.
son.
No, definitely. And
It's a 4-year-old. No castration happening. It's talking about, like, yeah, it's
now we've even got, you've got Marcy Bowers, I believe, caught on video saying, we don't, well, we've seen this happen. They have no sex lives and no ability to
orgasm. Yeah, yeah.
And
I don't know all of who they're talking about, but like, I'm sure you can cherry pick anything, any example of something going wrong and someone not being able to orgasm. I mean, there have been studies that suggest most women allegedly can't orgasm, and that doesn't necessarily mean anything. That sort of reasoning, and
infertile. And I'm thinking, this is huge. This is a major part of your adult life, like a major part of your adult.
What? Why is sex and orgasming like a major part of your adult life? That's a stretch. I mean, if you are that concerned about that stuff, usually it's because it's not a part of your adult life. I mean, there's a lot of affection that's not related to there's a lot of affection that's not related to sex at all, which is way more important in my mind. I mean, to be fair, I'm very sexual, so like that might be my part of the reason why I have the mentality I have. But I think everyone can agree that just the affection and intimacy of like cuddling is something not accepted as much in society, and hand-holding between friends, it's not accepted as much in society as it should be, but like it is very, very psychologically and emotionally helpful. There are so many things that are more important than sex and reproduction, and yeah.
And they've taken that choice away. And they're saying it in such a matter-of-fact way, as if to say, okay, well, this has happened to this lot, so we'll experiment a bit for the next lot to see if we can maybe give them a bit. And you're like, how unethical is this?
I mean, it's beyond unethical. It's really beyond unethical. I don't know if you saw or listened to Stella and Sasha's podcast, these excellent.
So everyone's got different priorities. People are different. Not everyone has the same priority. Not everyone wants the same thing. It's, yeah.
Interviews they did on the Gender a Wider Lens series with all these like what they call the pioneers, and they talked to 2 of the 3 Dutch doctors who had pioneered the what's now called the Dutch Protocol, which does, of course, sterilize and make sexually dysfunctional and so on.
I don't know what they're talking about.
And it was absolutely fascinating. It was 2 out of 3 because one of them had retired. The one who started or had retired. It was the other 2. And Stella and Sasha ask some quite probing questions along the, well, you say that these people are happy, but are they married? Are they in steady relationships? That sort of thing.
It's hard to be legally married when you're. So this is like the social model of disability, and I'm sure these people are plenty ableist. It's very much like you can't just be like that. There are things that are harmful that are because of society and not because of a person themselves. So that's part of the reason for the social model of disability, because how society affects your life impacts things. And it's one of those things where, yes, people can be happy. People can be happy without relationships. People can be happier without relationships. Some people don't want relationships. Some people love relationships, and I think so long as people get the needs that so long as people get the needs that they need, yes. I think it should be fine, but discrimination still exists. So like, sterilization is not the same as dysfunction. Yeah. surprising that they don't know the
And the
difference.
answer is, well, these people were very, 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 very unwell. They're very miserable. So, our baseline for what's okay for a life for them is very, very low. And we wouldn't expect them to have marriages or happy relationships or anything like that. You know what? This is being sold as a cure.
Yeah, if you are in a position where you are not being yourself and you're not being honest with your partner and you're not having, I mean, you can't have a healthy marriage or a relationship if you're not open and honest with your partner to some degree. And if you're keeping your whole life and making it a lie, yeah, that's not
You're saying that, if you let somebody transition, they'll blossom. And now we're being told that, okay, you give up their fertility, you give up their ability to orgasm, you give up their health, you shorten their life.
Doesn't stop the ability to orgasm. Guarantee you. I don't think there's an area of transition. For one thing, like emotional orgasm is a thing. So, and no, nothing is going to take that away, or almost nothing is going to take that away. I should say almost nothing. Emotional orgasms can exist, and this person clearly doesn't understand what it means to be that level of emotional close to someone. But yeah,
it doesn't matter if their bones are fragile, because they're really, really.
The bone fragility thing. I mean, this is one of those things where that, like, she can't hide her disgust as concern. Yeah, yeah, and you can. She makes it very obvious with some of her facial description. Plenty of assigned female at birth, people never have orgasms, especially with partner. Yeah, I mean, like, that was those with relation to the studies I saw before. There's a lot of things that are person to person, and I don't know how much of that. To be fair, a part of my brain is like, I don't know how much of that is guys just not knowing how to be good at sex. But like, yeah, this is very, I mean, and it's a faux concern because she's saying, I know what's best for you. I know better than experts. I know better than you about what will make you happy. Yeah, it's. Oh, the fragile bone things are like, oh, trans women only have advantages in sports, but also they're destroying their body. You know what else reduces bone density? Menopause. Yeah, and if you are on HRT, and so long as you have enough calcium and stuff and exercise some, your bones will be fine. Like, yeah, there's oftentimes on average less bone density, but that's going to be the same thing for cis women. Like, that's not
really miserable people. Yeah, not what I thought I was being told.
No, that is extraordinary because it's not just that we're being told it's a cure. It's they've done badly in some aspects, like we were talking about the conversion therapy thing, but they've done extremely well in other ways, like selling the idea that trans is something that you are as opposed to an action that you take.
Oh, I'm sure they're when they're saying conversion therapy, they are trying to suggest that transitioning is conversion therapy for gay people, which doesn't make sense if you talk to anyone trans and actually fucking listen, or look at the scientific research.
I think that's because we weren't looking. I don't think they ever did well. I think we just weren't looking. I think they were talking nonsense all the way along, but nobody was looking.
But the government's taken notice. I mean, councils have taken. I mean, Stonewall, I think, because they already had a good name, have done a huge amount of damage and unchecked.
Stonewall, referencing a riot where a lot of trans people. Did trans what is this? Trans people fighting for LGBTQ rights since forever, and talking about Stonewall doing damage for supporting trans rights. Yeah, if people can't find clit, they can't make climax. Yes. That's definitely the case.
Unchecked simply because they were writing.
But you know, they just
got
came
their
in.
own name.
They came in late. Loads of this is
Oh,
already
they
happened.
did.
There was loads of work behind the scenes. I think I do completely agree that they did a great deal of damage and that their good name has been extremely helpful to this body dissociation, sex denialist movement over the last 6 years since they became.
Nobody's denying sex. They create straw men to attack.
Inclusive. But they didn't make it. They just wrote
No.
it. They just worked out where the next thing was.
Yes. Well, in 2015, I think
Yeah.
it's quite well known, isn't it, that they sat down and said, "Are we going to take this on or not?"
Yeah, where's the money?
Yeah. And they got $100,000 for it.
And there's nothing like, my God, if we could go back in time and just give them $100,000 to sit on their hands.
Yes, Christ, we just crowdfunded shit out of it, wouldn't we? Christ
Yeah, I mean, we
almighty.
crowdfunded millions for other things. Have you been watching Alison's hearing?
I've been really shocked, actually, at a lot of it. I mean, as have we all. But the chambers have not come out well, have they? No matter what happens, I do feel that we've been given an insight into people, again, who you feel are, people in a position of power that you trust. You go to a barrister when you really are at your sort of, you're vulnerable. You need somebody to represent you in court. This is your one chance. You've waited for years, in all likelihood. It matters hugely. You're spending a lot of money. And yet, it turns out that, if this is to be believed, they're prejudiced and as sort of often unpleasant as a lot of other people. It's been really quite the eye opener. I mean,
I'm not sure they understand what prejudice means necessarily. Not fighting against someone is not necessarily prejudiced. That's not how this works. Not fighting against trans people does not make you prejudiced against cis het white women.
Part of what we've seen on the Garden Court front is how badly a lot of employers deal with social media. So, I mean, I've listened to a lot of it because there's a bunch of us are doing, I mean, we can't do a transcript because we're not court reporters, but we're doing as near as we can, like a bunch of fast touch typists. Because, I really hope Alison wins. She deserves to. But I'm not an employment lawyer. I can't tell. These are complicated arguments. And she could be right in all material respects and still lose. So it's quite important that this effort that she's put in and this enormous sacrifice she's made to get these people under oath, being cross-examined, where they can't just say, "Shut up, you bigot."
Vulnerable people can't afford a barrister, yeah.
Answering that question. It's really important that what they say gets out. I wish it could be recorded. It can't be, but I wish it could be because it deserves to be. I mean, some of the highlights. But yeah, so I mean, we can talk a bit about what the Stonewall people said, a lot of which I was typing. I mean, as I said, the thing that was difficult about the typing was my jaw kept getting in the way of my typing hands. She said, what? That's it. But the last couple of days has been Garden Court people, and I mean, I haven't been doing all of it by any means, but one of the things you really notice is how badly employers deal with Twitter storms. So if it comes down to, if I remember correctly, there's 42 tweets, several of which got investigated. They could just have gone, the trolls are at it again. I mean, a couple of those people had large accounts, but I think one of them was very large. There were people like Stephanie Hayden, and then a bunch of no-hopers with 50 followers and, this sort of bullshit. And they could just have ignored it and it would just have passed. And instead, they got bounced into a response as far as I can tell. And then that's when you see the prejudice. So they genuinely thought that Alison is genuinely prejudiced.
Yeah.
So they, in their mind, there was this absolutely extraordinary thing. So I mean, maybe people do or don't know, but I started a newsletter. And so I'm doing it each week from my website, thehelenjoyce.com.
Yeah,
the one's going out tomorrow, which is going to be free for everybody because I want this stuff out there as much as possible, is about the evidence of a woman called Catherine McGahey, who just said the most unbelievable things about. She analogized this idea that a lesbian who would never under any circumstance have sex with a male person. She analogized it like voluntarily. She wasn't bumped into it. She chose these analogies. She analogized it first with men who don't want women to advance at work.
I don't know what she's talking about. Also don't care.
And she's saying the lesbian inside her knickers is like the boss who's on the right side of the glass ceiling, right? And the poor trans woman who's trying to get through this unjustified barrier is like the woman who's approaching the glass ceiling, which is of course what the copper ceiling is meant to say. But she went big in on this, like really big in on this. And then she said, and it's also like South Africa. Come again? So she didn't say that exactly Alison was like, what's his name? I don't even know how you say it. I mean, read as Eugene Terre Blanche, like the white supremacist who went around with a machine gun trying to reimpose apartheid. But that's what she was doing. She was saying that's Alison. And the trans women are the liberation movement, the civil rights movement, and we've got to have truth and reconciliation. Again, these are my words. This is me, paraphrasing. But I mean, I was typing bloody hard. I can tell you that. So I can tell you. Yeah, so she gets, and she couldn't see what she was saying. She just couldn't see it.
What? I think when people are heavily discriminated against and trying to be segregated into sections of society, they are very aware of various discrimination, and South Africa was a it wasn't just people with guns. South Africa was a long history of segregation and eugenics-based oppression. So yeah, trans people are experiencing that sort of stuff. That's not.
So Ben spent ages, Ben Cooper, who's Alison's barrister, spent ages trying to get her to understand that the idea was inherently coercive. She was like, no, they could be talking in a non-coercive way. You could be trying to persuade lesbians to accept trans women as partners, but it wouldn't be coercive. So let me return to South Africa. She literally said it was like that bit where Nelson Mandela got the nation to come together behind the Springboks.
Behind the Springboks, the rugby thing. That's
Yes,
that
so she was in that. That's an example of non-coercive getting lesbians. How is
it possible that
I don't. Like, so what this person Helen Joyce has done is they've taken another marginalized group, because I don't know Helen Joyce's sexuality, but she's taken another marginalized group, most lesbians are fine with trans women, and she's used them as a shield. What Helen Joyce is doing is she's using lesbians as a shield to try to defend her points. It's like, you can't hate me. This is definitely attack on lesbians, and it's like, no, it's not. It's just, and it's not coercive either. You're not forcing anything. You're just pointing out the strangeness of things.
somebody can come to this conclusion?
And it's also it also fits in with the assumption that all trans women have dicks and beards. That seems to be the attitude most transphobes have. When convenient. Sorry, it's simultaneously trans women have mutilated genitals, but also definitely still have dicks and balls and beards or whatnot. Interchangeable minorities when she needs them. Yes.
Is it? Have they just swallowed the light? Did she come to this conclusion by herself? It's an incredibly difficult mindset to put yourself in.
Well, I mean, I'm going to be frank. I had to stop writing because I had to start doing my transcribing again, so the newsletter's going out tomorrow. But to give people a preview, like, I knew that once you dissociate who's a man and who's a woman from any physical reality, and you just,
I mean, who's a man, who's a woman has always been to some degree dissociated from it has always been to some degree unrelated to biology. But just, if you don't understand it, that's just your lack of understanding and your inability to take in facts.
about the words, and you're not seeing the people in front of you. Think the poor trans woman who's so passable, and all she wants is to be included in lesbian spaces, but those fucking bitches with their ridiculous ideology, they just won't accept us because they're mean fucking bitches.
So it's a small percentage of people. Like, this is a surprisingly small but vocal group that has a lot of influence over politicians, similar to, well, evangelical groups are larger than gender critical groups, but yeah, it's
right. And then you think of Alex Drummond, and it just doesn't work. It just
Is it that they simply have never seen an Alex Drummond? I mean, I'd be surprised because they're everywhere. I mean, they really are. Like, you only have to be on Twitter.
I don't know, Helen. I think they are prejudiced. They say you're prejudiced when you bring up somebody like Alex Drummond. You're like, well, look, you just keep shifting ground. You're talking about the passable trans woman, which I think basically doesn't exist. But anyway, no, he doesn't.
That right there, the we can always tell. She is, by the way, Helen Joyce is just hitting every single transphobic thing in one conversation. Everyone, I think. But yeah, passable trans women don't exist is not true. It's very much not true.
etc. But you know, so you're thinking in this very, very linguistic, abstract terms. So you're thinking about poor
And also, like, passing is not a requirement. You should just accept people for existing. And, like, even so, even the framework, you know, you need a sane society. Why? Why do you need a sane society? Like, even based on their own framework, there's a level of disgust and categorizing of some human beings as lesser by existing, and mental health is one of those things, which they are clearly doing with that. But like, I'm not sure they have a reason why they're arguing for same society if everyone had dissociative identity disorder but were logical and could get stuff done, it almost wouldn't matter. So long as things get done, like it's the assumption that if you are not X version of sane, you can't do anything, and that is the ableist terminology that's also used if you're physically disabled in any particular way. You're immediately considered useless. She doesn't know what sanity is beyond stuff and people who don't distress her.
woman and these mean bitches.
Yes.
And you're not very, you become completely detached from reality and you're only talking in linguistic terms. But then the thing I still have to get my head around, and I'm going to get up early to write this tomorrow because I think best in the...
Oh yeah, also they if a lesbian is interested in a trans woman, regardless of circumstance, then she must not really be a lesbian. I'm sure is why they're framing it that way.
Mornings. I realised when I was reading through her words again how every time Ben said something that was concrete and grounded in reality, and specifically grounded in the reality of the two sexes.
I mean, the discrimination against trans people is also grounded in reality, and just a reality you don't like to accept.
She abstracted it, and she
like you don't understand the reality of sexes. Helen Joyce. It's based on an assumption that sex has to be a particular way. And that's not how biology works. That's not how evolution works. There are always differences. There are always variations in genetic code, in how various biological processes happen to interact with your genetics. There's always going to be variations that exist. And you should never put stuff in to build a society around people having to be in two separate categories when there are more than two categories is it's not a society that is grounded in facts, logic, and reality. She has a negative aura. Yes, HK. Which reality, Helen, yours? Where married missionary position is pinnacle? You're assuming she can get any.
Personalized it. So even with the glass ceiling and with apartheid, she stepped away from who was doing the oppressing and who was doing the who was being oppressed.
This sounds like a bunch of assumptions that trans women, like who is she considering the oppressor and the oppressed? Because is she saying that trans women are the oppressors and cis women are the oppressed? But she also talks about, you know, pitying trans women and talking about how harmed they are. It's very nonsensical. She thinks she gets plenty.
So she really rephrased both women being held back at work and black people not having their civil rights in apartheid South Africa. She phrased these as there was prejudice, there was racism, there was sexism.
Yeah, I mean, it's a generalization of the various extremes. In the past, women weren't allowed to work. Like you like certain there are overlaps in discrimination. And there's intersectional discrimination too.
And people had to come together. You don't end the glass ceiling by making men feel bad, by making them feel bigots. You strategize ways. Like the example she gave was encouraging women to apply more for jobs. So this is sexism without the men. The men aren't doing anything. The men it's just free-fledging sexism. And it was the same with racism. She said about South Africa, she kept rephrasing it. What was she saying? You know, there had been prejudice and there was still racial tension. You're like, well, that makes it sound like it was both ways, mate. You know, like it was actually.
This is nitpicky. The presence of the guitar gives me some hope. I mean, a guitar in one place and a cello in another. The cello is for, well, yeah, I'm sure they're just for decorative because of cultural stuff.
Yes. Minority running the country. Yes. So yes, it was all very free floating, as opposed to thinking like, you know, this is a male person who wants to coerce a female person into opening her legs for him.
What? No, nobody is. What? This is. Very wrong.
You know, she was like, "Oh, there is prejudice. There is transmisogyny." Like, this is a bullshit word.
Yes.
Transmisogyny is not a yes word. Transmisogyny. Well, it exists, and in fact, it was on the start of this when, she was calling all trans women hysterical. Right near the start, Helen Joyce called all trans women hysterical. Like,
it's a terrible word. Honestly, it's ridiculous. But so this is a barrister, presumably.
Yeah, but that's the ideology. I think she didn't look younger than me, but I mean, this bullshit has been taught in universities for an awfully long time.
Oh, always attacking the university thought process. I mean, that's not fashy at all. And while they're in their nice homes, drinking wine and talking about how oppressed they are and how trans women aren't oppressed at all, even though, you know, there's employment discrimination and all sorts of other sorts of discrimination by people who feel disgust about the concept of a trans woman existing in society and ignore trans men completely and non-binary people. Well, non-binary people they view as confused. But yeah.
Like everything's structural. You know this thing of structural racism?
Structural, yes.
Yeah, so when I heard this first, I thought what they were saying is there's racism, and that racism is baked into the structures of our society, which is completely true. It absolutely is. Like the way that things are run, like if you look at who owns what, you know, why in America black families break up more, that sort of thing is very structural. So for a long, long time, I thought these people were talking about that, and then people criticize them, and I would think it was very unfair to criticize them. But now I realise that they're talking about a sort of a matrix, an invisible matrix around us, and it's not people at all. We're all slotted into this invisible power structure thing.
No, we're all victims.
Yeah, we're all victims, and none of us have agency. So she's talking about racism, sexism, and this bloody bullshit about transmisogyny as structural things with no agents. And
well, she knows hysterical literally derives from the uterus. No, I don't think she does, and I don't think she. I think she did that without thinking. I think she was trying to use an ableist framework and accidentally framed it in a way that is almost exclusively used against women. And she just didn't process that was the case.
That's the way you think, and you've got these poor trans women slotted in.
Oh, and when you're talking about, so what she's doing right now, she's criticizing the sort of, she's criticizing the concept of hierarchies, and she's essentially saying hierarchies don't exist, which they definitely do, and you don't have to have a specific person actively implementing something for it to be a there to be a cultural influence.
In the victims sort of slot. They're not even people, they're just placeholders. She's not thinking of Alex Drummond as a bloke who's having a great time LARPing for some reason. He's gone very quiet recently, by the way. But,
yeah, ages. He's
he isn't doing it anymore, is he?
No, who knows? He's probably
back in trousers now.
Moved on to something else. Yes, but that's a very, very interesting point about the it's depersonalized. The whole thing is just abstract and theoretical.
And she's straight away.
Hierarchies are not an abstract philosophical concept. Yeah.
Just reflexively to every question. Like I was looking through the transcript, and it's not a transcript, you know what I mean? And at every point, immediately she just rephrased the things as, yes, there's prejudice, yes, there has been racism, yes, there's continuing prejudice. Like, is this in the air or something? Or do you mean that there's white blokes in pickup trucks, rampaging around through the townships, terrorizing black people? Because that's what I remember from the end of the podcast.
Oh, now she's downplaying racism. Because of course she is. She's not seeing the subtle aspects of racism. Wait, a white person downplaying racism in Britain, where the Tories said that they had ended racism? Shock.
No, there's racism. Both sides.
That is.
Well, no, it's not about saying there's racism on both sides. And you're talking about racial tensions. That's a both sides argument. That's just saying that that there was tension. And tension is a very broad term. It's not saying anything about fault. She has a black friend cowering somewhere. Yes, she does. Wait, is Allison Bailey still alive? I heard there's medical trouble, but if Allison Bailey is still alive, Allison Bailey is the black friend. In the
But yes, that is a really, really interesting point there. But how
do you get through to her?
Get that? Well, yes, exactly.
I think we can't. I think this woman's lost. Like, she was under oath. She was not lying. She really, really, really wasn't lying. She couldn't hear what Ben was saying. And there were a couple of extraordinary moments where he was talking about shaming. And what he was trying to say is that coercion isn't always violence and the threat of violence. Sometimes it's the threat of other things, for example, shaming. So he was talking about shaming lesbians.
While at the same time, she's talking about shaming trans people. It's one of those things where shame is a complicated thing, and that can happen throughout society. And yes, I am well aware of her Helen Joyce's black friend. But yeah, she doesn't know any disabled adults, obviously. If she does, it would be if she does, the disabled adult would be one of the people who would fight for ableist concepts. Sort of like the guy who played Superman. I can't think of names. But yeah, it would probably be something like the friend she has would be probably someone like that. But yeah, like, she is shaming trans women. Trans women, like I said, I mean, I've been told to kill myself, and other trans women have too. And trans men as well. Although trans men get the lucky hysterical, very funny thing I was gonna say hysterically funny, but yes, funny aspect of getting told that they'll never be real women is my favorite thing that trans men get as a comment from these people.
And she answered, seeming to think that he was talking about shaming trans women. It's like,
Is it that she is simply? I think I used to, when I first started work, or not actually first started work, maybe when I made friends at work, and I used, we'd argue about things, and I'd say to them, like, you can genuinely take a abstract position on anything I say because you are white, rich men, and you have nothing.
And these people aren't like are two of the three. They're white and they're rich. I guarantee you these two people are rich. Or at least they act like they are.
Thing personal to fight for. It is all everything, every argument that I bring up about feminism, page 3, whatever. You can answer it in entirely theoretical. And I'm wondering if this is sort of part of it for her. Everything is theoretical because she actually doesn't feel, she's not
maybe
at the top of her career. She's, she now feels that she's sort of, she can just look down.
That's again, just because you haven't experienced prejudice doesn't mean it's not a thing. Yeah, but like, yes, they are. But Helen gets off on J.K. Rowling's fame. That's true. But yeah, it's very. They're yeah, these two people are creating a they're attacking the character of someone.
So I didn't get that impression. I didn't get that impression from her. I mean, of course, she's not the target of the Julie Bindel style of feminism. Like, Julie says she doesn't care whether there's a glass ceiling. What she cares about is the fact that there are women being smashed in the face and kicked out of their homes and in need of refuge and being.
She doesn't care that there's a glass ceiling. She doesn't care about equity for women. I'm sure she doesn't care about menstrual leave or any number of other things that would help prevent the problems. Like, these problems aren't solo. And this is based around a framework that women are inherently helpless. And this is just
raped on the streets and having to sell sex to survive and things like that. Like, that's the bit of
there are women who sell there are women who become prostitutes because they enjoy prostitution, and good on them. But like, this person would say that they clearly were tricked into it or had to do it inherently, and not to say that there isn't that sort of circumstance as well, but like, it's not a simple black and white thing.
And she does that.
Yeah, and that's what she does. Of course, she dedicated her life to it. So, I mean, I've even heard her say she just doesn't care. And I mean, I don't think she really means exactly that. I mean, that she thinks
no, but she doesn't care to spend. Yeah, exactly. And that makes complete sense, doesn't it?
So I think that Catherine McGahey, I mean, I don't know her. I mean, she could have had a very hard life for all I know. But I would say that she, and I would say me too, because of the way my life has gone, probably over-focused on the glass ceiling aspect of things. And the thing is that when you are a woman in, male dominated, or you've done well in your career, and I mean, this is me too, many of your friends, they're your colleagues. Some of them are the people who have supported you in work and things. You don't want to say, I am held back, and sometimes you're not held back. It's very complex, and you also, it's not very wise to actually. Like, it's
no, absolutely.
Well, this is why unionization is important, and it's helpful for unionization, not kicking out marginalized groups, but
it's better to focus on the sort of consciousness raising, like helping women to ask for raises, instead of thinking like, what's the structural thing that's happening here? Here's me using the word structural, but by structural I mean things like maternity pay. Are we supporting women to take a full year out and then to come back and be supported back in? Like, that's my idea of sensible structural, not this free-floating sort of sexism.
Yes, absolutely.
Those things are interconnected. It's not about fighting one and not the other. You can fight for both.
Because that's something you can actually do something about. I mean,
you can do something about both.
I think, it does make a lot of sense, doesn't it, to focus on something that you think, something small that you can change. I remember when I'm harking back to the no.
People don't have the words for things they see. People don't know about some things until they hear about it. Like speaking out about discrimination causes people to end up hearing about it. If enough people hear about it, it becomes harder and harder to ignore. That's why speaking out is important, and it should never be ignored as like a nothing.
Campaign. And only because I just downloaded my Twitter archive on the weekend because I was, now things are moving on, and you get older and you forget when did this happen? When did this happen? I thought that I'd seen this in around sort of 2011, but actually looking at my Twitter, it's very 2013 is all no page 3, and then beginning of 2014. It is, that's the first time I used the word sort of turf. And I know in the middle there, I got myself an anonymous account because I'd already seen at that point that women were getting vilified. But anyway, that's an aside. So I'm thinking back for the No Page 3 campaign.
People were getting vilified, specifically people who were a part of an anti-trans movement, like these people. But there are plenty of men who are also getting vilified for the same thing. Graham Limeyman is definitely someone who has that was probably a bit much, but that was probably unintentionally hurting other. I take that back, but you know who I'm talking about. Graham Linham definitely was spoken out against. It wasn't the people against trans people are not just women. Plenty of men do it too. In fact, a majority of the people are men, but yeah.
It was the first time I'd really done anything like that. And what was interesting about it was that it was focused. It had an aim, and that aim was to get page 3 out of the sun. And in doing that, lots of other questions and interesting sort of ideas came along and enabled me to think about things and to read.
This sounds like how conspiracy theories form. You need to have it's like a house. You generally want to make a foundation, and the foundation would be, ethics, which isn't taught in school, and philosophical structure, which also isn't taught well in school. Look, I was the only person in my entire class who was arguing against free will, but yeah.
Things, etc. But it was focused,
yes.
And it had an aim, and then that aim was done, and then I moved on to other things.
Yeah, you wouldn't have been somebody who, when you were asked, I'll tell you another thing I noticed looking through it. So, most of Catherine McGahey's testimony was about this word coerce, because the thing is, she had found, as the vice chair of the Bar Standards Board, she had given it as her opinion that Alison's tweet about the cotton sealing workshop by Morgan Page was likely to breach the Bar Standards Board's standards. Now, that wasn't a finding. She was asked for her advice, and Alison was told that she should take it down, and Alison refused to, and there were no consequences. But anyway, she said that on the basis of the word coercion. Alison had said that the very idea of the cotton sealing workshop is coercion. So for anyone who doesn't know about this bloody workshop, which has become notorious, it was held by this trans woman called Morgan Page under the auspices of Planned Parenthood. Morgan Page is Canadian, but now lives in London and works for Stonewall, Small World. And the idea of it was, by direct analogy with the glass ceiling, to get trans women together to strategize overcoming the cotton ceiling, the barriers to trans women getting paid by lesbians. And it really uses those.
I guarantee you that is not the main purpose of it, nor is that the main thing of the ceiling is. It's likely been cherry-picked. Terminology to, little bits of it have been picked out to try to create this narrative, but I guarantee you that's not. When it comes to trans rights, it's not about that. The only thing is sort of like, if you had fake chicken and it looked like chicken and it tasted like chicken, why do you care that? And it gave your body the same well, it would give or did. If you had a nutritious thing, a food that was just as nutritious as chicken, and looked like chicken and tasted like chicken, why would you care whether or not it's chicken? And it's the same thing with trans women who have a vagina. If it looks like a vagina, if it smells like a vagina, it tastes like a vagina, why do you care where it came from? And that's generally the thought process. Words aren't real.
His words, barrier, overcome, strategized. And Alison characterised this in a tweet as coercion. So Catherine McGahey brought her entire training as a barrister to bear on defending her, saying that the word coercion was not justified. And she then had to talk about three groups on the wrong side of a barrier, namely Black South Africans, women in work, and trans women in lesbian dating spaces, as people who could get what they wanted without coercion. And one of these things is not like the others, you say.
Oh, sorry. No lesbian. Clearly, no lesbian actually dates trans women. Sure. You can go ahead and believe that, and convince yourself of that. It doesn't change the reality.
No.
So she's trying to talk about Black South Africans and women, women's long history for rights, and saying, and they could do it all without coercion. Like, I think there was a fair bit of, throwing your weight around at various points because we had right on our side. And then
Yeah. So, what is considered good and evil are societal constructs. A fascist will consider potentially can consider eugenics as not evil. I mean, this person doesn't consider eugenics one performed on trans women to be evil. So like you can't just be like they're in the wrong for wanting rights. And I mean, you can't, this, yeah.
See, the reason she has to say that the trans women aren't being coercive is because it's bloody rapey. Like,
Yes.
What this Richard Cotton Ceiling Workshop makes me think of is, have you seen these pickup artists? Do you know these guys?
Oh yes. I
Yeah.
actually, there was a guy I used to sit next to at work. He went on these courses. He used to talk to me
Yeah.
about it way back in the sort of noughties, before I'd even sort of thought about all of this stuff. He went on a course with one of them, and then it was all about negging and
Yeah.
how to all this. I was at the time I was like, oh, this is interesting. It's only after thinking back, I'm like,
That was freaky. That was really,
so
really creepy of them.
terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it is coercive. I mean, the word coercive is a word that has changed in its understanding over the last 10 years, and I think rightly, like we now have this idea of coercive control. Like, domestic relationships, usually men, keeping women under the thumb by things like, constantly putting them down, checking up on them 500 times a day, that sort of thing. Even if the woman never has any justified fear that he's going to punch her, because it's not a man who's ever punched her, it may still be coercive. And that's
I mean, that small bit is true. You can have various coercive things. It's not even just relationships, like any relationship, and it's not just women who are coerced. It's anyone in a relationship can be coerced by similar means without physical violence.
recognized now in law. And so, I mean, some of the pickup artist things are just like, be clean, go to the gym and work out, dress well.
Justified fear? Yeah. Wait, I missed that. I'm not gonna go back.
Sort out your own self-esteem issues. Like, they're not bad advice, actually. But mostly what it's about is, as you say, negging, which is, backhanded insults.
Somebody asked. Yes, sorry. Somebody's asked what negging is.
So it's short for negative, I think. It's when you give a woman a compliment that's actually an insult. So you say something like, "Oh, they're nice nails."
So, I mean, they can talk about something that's genuinely bad and then associate it with something completely unrelated to say that's bad too, even though there's no actual relation between the two subjects.
Are they real? Or that's an interesting hair color. wouldn't have chosen it myself, but that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So you're putting
And
her
it's a way
down.
yes, and it's a way of making her feel just sort of, a little bit
Less
vulnerable.
confident, more
Yeah,
vulnerable,
exactly.
more off balance, that sort of thing. So it's all, I mean, some of these techniques are bullshit. They're based on neurolinguistic programming, which is bullshit. It's like the use of language that's meant to be, that infallible. You can get people to do what you want them to do by using words the right way, But the aim is to get, only the aim is to get women into bed who don't want to get into bed with you. That's the aim of it. And the full pickup artist thing is.
Oh, abuse doesn't care about your gender, Helen, or anyone else's either. Yes.
Coercion. So yeah,
Yes,
if you want, the cotton ceiling is just pickup artistry. Trans woman. That's all it is.
Yes. Yes.
So,
And
That no. They're just saying, oh, this is what pickup artisting is. Well, this is pickup artisting, even though I've got no example of how there's any relation. Yeah, see, that doesn't surprise me at all that they would do that.
in fact, it was even reasonably. I mean, to be fair, it was quite a long time ago. And at the time, like I was saying to you, a colleague of mine would talk openly about it.
So this was 2019, I think, this workshop. So I think some people already noticed it. Like I remember seeing stuff about that workshop. Planned Parenthood had to put out a statement about it, and they said there was no coercion involved and no coercion discussed.
But I'm not entirely surprised that it was done.
If you say a lie enough, there are people who will believe you, and clearly that is what happened here, or they're just outright saying lies enough to themselves for them to believe it.
Because that was the sort of thing that was going on in
it's still going on.
men's world.
Yeah, it's called PUA, pickup artists.
Yeah,
PUA. All these PUAs guys are still doing their thing, big time. And women say it's disgusting, or it's coercive, it's part of rape culture, or whatever. All of this is true. It doesn't get us anywhere.
Yeah,
so Alison is just talking about the lesbian equivalent, which is trans women who are men getting together, discuss strategizing, getting into lesbian knickers in the way that.
But that's, I mean, no, that's no. T for T. T for T is a common thing in trans culture, which is not to date cis women. There are a lot of trans women, and probably some trans men. I'm not going to speak for trans men, since I'm not one. But there are plenty of trans women who will only date other trans people because they don't want the discrimination. And this idea that trans women are either simultaneously, trans women are straight men trying to have sex with lesbians, and gay men who have been conversion therapied into being trans. Simultaneously. Yeah, there's definitely no contradiction there. No.
Because men are doing this sort of thing.
Yeah.
Men do this sort of thing, which is why we know absolutely well. It's one of the reasons that it's very, very obvious. I mean, this is not something that women do. I'm going to actually go out on a limb and say that there are no workshops for women to how to pick up men that don't want to have sex with you to have sex with you.
To be fair, Helen, if you just go into a bar and look around and say, "Who wants to shag me?" you'll get a few. So the situation is so different for men and women.
Yes, exactly. You don't need a workshop. You just.
If you're available, you'll get someone. Sort of
you just can't drink. Yes.
I mean, technically, there's an incel movement of women. I mean, technically, they're wrong. How incels started, it originally started with a women's group of not getting men. That is the thing that does occasionally happen, and then it got coerced by a bunch of men. It's forever ago, and that became the toxic environment that it is now. But like, it did start with women. Like a lot of things, women started it, and men decided it was their thing. Oh.
It's very true.
Yeah.
So yes, I think so. Going back to how you started here, yes, I agree. I think that part of this thing for Alison, this tribunal, is to get the message.
Oh, and also, that's a white women thing. That's not an all women thing. Black women are discriminated against in this country, are called masculine, to try to get people to. Oh, I can't remember there was a whole framework on how racism and certain aspects of sex of discrimination against black women has occurred in society in America, at least.
Yeah,
Because as you say, it is complex, and we're all reading it and we're all saying, well, this sounds really quite bad to me. I don't know. I have absolutely no idea about employment law, and it's going on for a really long time. There's a lot of evidence, but that's the great thing about it, isn't it? There's a lot of stuff being said, and it's
And the thing is, like I said, or women not getting men they thought they deserved. She's a parasite of other people's struggles. Yes. HK, yes, and yeah, or women. M mentioned the or women not getting men they thought they deserved. Yes, and HK, yes, she is a parasite of other people's struggles. She uses them as a shield, to play victim while fighting for eugenics.
It's really shocking. A lot
The other
of this
great
stuff
stuff
is
was the
shocking.
Stonewall stuff. The Stonewall stuff was just great. Oh Lord, I'm so glad I did Kieran Metcalf. It was just such a day. So Kieran is the head of trans inclusion. Is a trans man, so I'm going to call her she, if that's all right with you. I-
Sorry. That I don't like that.
He came back after lunch, and I think it was after lunch, maybe. It's after break anyway, because often when they change witnesses, a good point for a break, because everyone's in different rooms, it's all being heard remotely. So Kieran is there in camera, and Ijoma Omambala, who's the QC who's representing Stonewall, she's somewhere else, like she's just in a different room. And so she did this brilliant thing of trying to pass off the fact that there were other people in the room with Kieran Metcalf, as if it was just a minor detail. So she says, Kieran Metcalf's here, has an emotion, has a support person in the room. And then said, we haven't had that discussed. Can we have a case management hearing about that? And the judge wants to move things along because we're really running late. So the judge said, all right, can we just have the emotional, can we just have the support person in shot? And Ben said, what sort of support person is it? And she said, Ijoma does this thing of going, what is this stupid question? She has this brilliant, like, what is your stupid question face? And she went, emotional support person. Like, she nearly said, you fool, at the end of that. It's just absolutely classic. And so the judge...
This is the classic looking down on people. More ableism, ultimately, mixed in with discrimination.
Said, can you move the emotional support person in shot? And Ijoma said, and I'm not joking, and sorry, the reason I call this person Ijoma is I know someone who knows her, who talks about her as Jo. Anyway, Ms. Omambala, I should say. And she said, we'll have to move the camera to get them all in. And in the hearing, all the people who are watching are muted, but the QCs for Garden Court and for Stonewall are unmuted in case they need to intervene, as is Alison's QC, and as are the judge and the two other people on the tribunal. So there's 6 people who are not muted. And I think all 6 of them simultaneously, apart from Ijioma's room, said, all of them? It was the most extraordinary moment. And then the camera went and then we all went to mute. And then 5 minutes later we came back, they had rearranged the room, and Ijoma Omambala did the same thing again, of like, what are these people putting me through with their ridiculous demands, She said, well, we have reduced the number in the room, and the support person had gone. This is presumably a friend of Kieran Metcalf's who had not signed up to be on camera. And we now had Kieran's mum sitting behind her. And we had sort of person that we could see just the ear.
I get the impression of not only discrimination, but also dead naming as well. I get the impression, potentially.
Of who is described as technical support. Now it's actually very, very hard to deal with the bundles. The bundles are really like 6,000 plus pages.
Yes,
so I actually don't think that's
I've been understanding this.
Yeah, to have somebody who's constantly getting your page for you. And then Omambala said, and there's a dog in the room. Like mad people like you want to know these minor details, like this.
Oh, someone called someone of a lesser class a dog. Oh, how funny! Yeah.
Dog in the room. And so then later on the judge said, can we see the technical support person? And this person's face came more into view. Bloody hell, it was the effing solicitor. It was Stonewall's solicitor. And then not mentioning this fact. Now, she wasn't doing anything she shouldn't have been doing. I'm not saying that. It's come on.
Yeah, come on. I was really hoping that you were going to say that the judge said, can we see the dog?
That's expected, but gross. Yeah.
Because that's just business. This is just bullshit. This is bullshit. This person is on a 40+ K a year job.
Yes.
Managing people.
Yes.
And seriously, she's just not well. She's really not well. I mean, it's not about having reasonable adjustments. Like, if you're anxious, you might need to bring your dog. I get that. If you're somebody, like one of the other people, also the other trans person from Stonewall, said that they were dyscalculic, which means that you're not good with numbers. I mean, I can believe that. That's fine. Get someone to do the pages for you. But like this thing of needing a cast of thousands around you, like what does she do at work? So yeah, she said stuff. She was such an
yeah. Who would want like a more inclusive society? Wow, what a fucking bitch.
idiot she really was, and she didn't understand that her job is to say as little as possible to Ben and then to agree with absolutely everything that Hockhauser, who's Stonewall's QC, said. So I did the stint in the morning, not when it wasn't the morning, whichever stint anyway it was that Kieran was doing for Ben. She was happily agreeing to it all. Like, it was extraordinary. Ben was like, so you think that it must be transphobic to say that a trans woman is male? And she was like, yeah, it's transphobic and it's not right.
I mean, usually this goes on with the comment biologically male, which is not how. So so like currently, because I've been HRT for a long period of time, for the most part, most of my secondary sexual characteristics are female. Like, there isn't a difference. See, like, what people talk about, like the genetics with the XY and XX chromosome, what they don't realize is Y is just, there's very, very little special about the Y chromosome. The Y chromosome has very little to do with sex. There's something to stop the creation of the uterus. I think that's in the Y chromosome. Oftentimes, stop creation of uterus and ovaries. Otherwise, people have both penis and testes and uterus and ovaries, because there is so little difference. No, frack you, official support people or family have no place participating. Yeah, frack you. Yeah, the attitude is just awful, that people or family have no support people or family have no place. No, it's come on.
And then Ben would say, and is that the Stonewall position? She's like, yes, that's the Stonewall's position. So like, she just kept agreeing to everything Ben said, and then apparently I didn't do the Hockhauser bit. Just kept arguing with him. Like, didn't understand that her job is just to agree with Stonewall.
No, that was really odd. The whole thing. I mean, I was thinking, I sort of flipped between feeling bad for her and then remembering that no, Stonewall. This is Stonewall. This is somebody in a position of massive influence. Look what they've done.
They were trying to throw her under the bus. Very interesting. So she'd only been at Stonewall 5 weeks when she sent this extraordinary letter to Garden Court after Alison's tweets about the LGBT Alliance launch. So she sent this letter that came out in Discovery, and which Alison published a good while ago, and people may well have seen it. It says, I paraphrase, it says, nice chambers, you got here, shame of anything should happen to it. Like, it talks about Alison's connection with yourselves. Kieran has a very odd speech pattern. Her connection with yourselves makes it difficult for us to work with you. So Kieran said, and possibly quite sincerely, that what she had meant by that was that she would never have been able to bring a trans person into Garden Court, and they were going to be hosting events for trans people in Garden Court. She seriously said that if she were to bring a trans person into Garden Court, Alison might be there, and this person might experience violence, and they might not be able to use the toilet. This picture of Alison Bailey lurking.
They will include anyway. Yeah, no, there's already painting trans people as rapists and murderers, but also weak, delusional. Like, it's the sort of thing of simultaneously weak, incredibly weak and useless, but also incredibly dangerous. Those two things are combined. That happens with any scapegoat that's used. It's always that framework.
Behind a toilet door.
Well, I honestly, I thought that came across so badly. I mean, she said, maybe we should be on a different floor. She was literally saying that a black lesbian,
a middle-aged lesbian,
segregated away from them on a different floor. Like, I thought, how is it possible that you're saying this out loud without hearing how it's coming out, man?
Well, it's the same person.
I'm guessing they're talking about the one transphobic black person that they found.
Who said that there's no biological sex, that trans women aren't male, that trans women do not have male body.
Nobody's saying there's no sex. That's a straw man point. It's just biology is more complicated than they think. And sex is just the binary is just a framework to break down and categorize different traits. But like it's not an ultimatum or an ultimate goal. There is no goal in biology. It just happens. It just exists. There's no goal to become fertile. There's no goal of biology to become fertile or not fertile. Biology itself has no goal. The scientific biology as a science has a goal, but like the biological nature of evolution and humanity has no specific goal. That's a humanizing an abstract concept.
They have trans women's bodies, that it's not possible to identify the sex anybody is. Biological sex is a mixture of characteristics. Biological sex changes through like the lifespan.
There are sexual characteristics that, so like when old men get tits, when their testosterone drops low enough, you're saying that's not a biological change? Like, biology's complicated. It's not simple.
Emery?
Well, I mean, I wrote it up, so I can, you know, if you when you publish this, you might want to put some links in. You know, I wrote up an article on it. We also published the highlights of Kieran's statement on Kieran's evidence on sex matters, because it was so bonkers, you know. But yeah, so Kieran.
You not understanding something doesn't mean it's devoid of science or reality. It's just that science and reality is more complicated than the simplistic breakdown that you were taught in grade school.
I was saying that if a trans woman went into the toilets at Garden Court and Alison was there, they might experience violence. And when you remember the trans woman is male and Alison is female, you realise how stupid this is. Anyway.
Trans women have been raped in toilets. Trans women have been murdered in toilets. Of course, those ones don't count. No, not segregation either, but verbal attack is violence worthy of avoiding. Yeah.
Kieran's just drunk the Kool-Aid. So, yes, so what was the other one that Kieran did? Oh, yes, it was 5 weeks. 5 weeks Kieran had been there, right? And then the way it works is you get cross-examined, and then you get re-examined by your own side. So Jane Russell, who's the junior for Stonewall, re-examined Kieran. And I'm sure Jane is a very knowledgeable barrister, but she talks like a CBB presenter. She goes, "So, Mr. Metcalf," that she dialed it up to 11 for her, and she just basically.
They're not discussing things, just Helen and her sycophant. Helen and Helen are they're both both the Helens here. Sorry, my thing is covering. They're both named Helen. It's Helen Stanland and let me adjust this a little bit so you can wait, let me. So it's Helen Stanland and Helen Joyce. So both the Helens are not discussing things. They are they're repeating talking points to justify their discrimination.
And Kieran was too stupid to see it. Was trying to present it as that Kieran had been freelancing. So she was like, "So you used to work in the anti-LGBTQ plus hate?" Oh, like this, you know, she's talking like that. And Kieran's like, "Yeah. So would you say that you're very committed to this? Like so committed, so personally committed?" And Kieran's going, yeah, so dumb. So yeah, so basically that was the idea, was to present this as Kieran had sent this off without talking to anyone else at Stonewall. And Kieran's like, yeah.
That's
oh god, it was something else. I'm so glad I watched it, but I've got very little done in the last 2 weeks.
It's a shame that it's not being recorded, though, isn't it?
Oh my god, yes.
I'm able to actually tell us on camera how some of it went down, but that it is a shame because, you know, I mean, one of the things that we really do need is for the wider public to understand that it isn't all vulnerable. I mean, to be fair,
they are very vulnerable. Kieran Metcalf and Shannon are very vulnerable people, but they're a mixture of vulnerable and vicious.
Well, and powerful.
Yes. So Kieran, I mean, would you like to? You're a young woman who's 5 weeks into a new job at a charity with a good name. Stonewall, like, I mean, we don't think it's got a good name, but it still has a good name. Like, that's a great job to land. Head of trans inclusion. 5 weeks in, you see some tweets you don't like, and you send an email to all the heads of chambers, and I think other people at one of the biggest barristers' chambers in Britain, saying, you know, like, not even good grammar and like proper English, saying, you know, associating with this woman is going to cause a problem for us, so you might have to rethink it.
No, it is. No, I was thinking exactly the same thing. I was thinking, you know, if I send an email at work, I really consider my words. I consider the message I'm sending. What am I saying? Who am I saying it to?
Well, Kieran said she did do that.
Very careful.
She said she left it for some days, but I suppose, who the fuck do you think you are, child?
Yes.
Bailey, a barrister.
Oh, here's here's a fun ageism you know.
With her gravitas and standing and so on, yes, okay, everybody is open to criticism. Everyone can say what they think. But do you really think? Do you not think that you should maybe check out whether you're on the right side here?
Oh, the irony.
Yes, but I still think. I mean, the insult about we're not safe. We're not safe. We might not be safe. I mean, that's almost fucking libelous, isn't it?
It is, but if you think about it, Kieran is a man who thinks she's a woman, so presumably she's using men's faces.
No, wait. The other Kieran is a woman who thinks she's a man.
Sorry, yes, yeah, Kieran's. Yeah.
I love how much they just as a cis person who's not protected by quote unquote single gender spaces, frack the hell off. Yeah, and it's very much they keep struggling because their instinct is to call a man. They can't even. They struggle with the concept of trans men. Even here, they struggle with the concept because they don't actually. Because every part of their instinct and everything they know is fighting against this conditioning that they put themselves through to some degree and have been put through to towards discrimination.
She goes and uses men's faces where she is putting herself in danger all the time and trying to pretend, trying to conceal that fact from herself. So I don't think that's not relevant. I think that's what she.
Yeah. They say stuff like this, but then they're saying if you look too much like a man, you shouldn't be in women's spaces half the time, and it's very much it's very they don't care about trans men and they don't care about trans women.
I think so when she thinks about using the wrong toilets.
Well, that's interesting. So because it occurs to me that not all women who identify as trans would use, say, changing rooms.
I know, but I think Kieran is a head case. So
okay, now that's a very.
Of course, every trans person is crazy, and therefore, none of the opinions are could possibly be correct, and certainly let's just disregard the fact that we have had tons and tons of research that goes against what these two people are saying. And literally Helen Joyce at the start of this video argued for eugenics utilizing conversion therapy, and they're just like, oh, why don't you make sure you're on the right side of history? It's like lack of self-reflection. You don't have to show it all if it's so annoying. They're beyond hope.
Very interesting. Yeah. So
I don't know what she does, but anyway, I mean, she was full on with the, you can't tell.
Well, it's almost at the end.
Whatever you say it is. So.
Well, cheers to Alison for.
I've already done the psychological thing of I've committed too much to this.
And all of you for doing all of the transcribing.
Wait, Jesus, it is so tiring. It really is. Like, it's fascinating, and sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's been hours of endless arguments about how barristers do their billing. Like, I understand this is important for any damages, but are we going to talk about how Alison records her holiday or the outcome that you're saying you want?
It's come out in paperback. Do you?
Yeah, no, this is. Oh, infantilizing too again, child. Stop. Thanks. Yeah, no, I don't think I can do any more of this actually. I think we've gotten the most parts, and it's getting close to when I stream on Twitch. So I probably should go up. I'm gonna play this clip again because
I grew up knowing I'm less than them. That my place is down there.
And that is we all grew up like I've known, and most trans people have known from a young age how society views us, and we went into the fire willingly because it's worse than oblivion. Sorry, the fire is not as bad as oblivion. Sorry, my bad. I was trying to do a metaphorical type thing. Not being yourself hurts in a way worse way than going through a much more something with that hurts people through society. It's just, yeah, it's just awful. And by the way, thank you to anyone who showed up and watched the stream. I did not intend it for it to be this long, but I got too curious about it. The worst parts of what's said, arguably I should have just stopped it after like the first hour, but like there's a morbid curiosity to how awful things are. Oh, thank you, HK. I mean, I try to do as well as I can, but yeah, the thing is, this isn't so much to say that these people, this isn't to point and say that these people are bad. I mean, they are, but like a lot of people know that. It's one of those things where they went mask off. They did such a clear example at the start of how they want to get rid of all trans people. Have you a place to gift to? I actually might. I might have a couple, actually. Oops. Wait, well, no, let me find the Streamlabs. I think I can. I think the Streamlabs thing is one of the easier things, maybe, or I don't know how to get that link. Words. I'm the worst at gift sites. There. Wait, let me. Oh wait, maybe I could just go to the dashboard. That's. Where's the brand? Oh, a custom filing tool count. That's monthly tips. Oh no, I know it. Oh no, where is the tip thing? I should have integrations and no, that's a link to Patreon. I mean, technically I have a Patreon, but I feel like oh wait, those are creating links. PayPal. Okay, I've got a PayPal. Oh wait, I've got a coffee, Ko-fi. There we go. Sorry, I got thrown off. Yeah, or yeah, you can always do bits on Twitch. If you want. Either works. Up to you, whatever. Thank you, everyone, for showing up, by the way. Thank you very much. I do appreciate it. Like, even just showing up, it's a minor thing, but sometimes it makes the world. And I don't always have interesting stuff going on or a good idea that strikes me, but yeah. I'm just like I see the thank you and we're just like, but like I barely did anything. Just a little it's just a little stream. Yeah. I'm not I still need to work on my ability to take compliments. Thank you very much. Yeah, and thank you, M and HK. You're wonderful people. Also, have a wonderful time.